Hello, I've got Theo with me again from uh, Democrats versus Dictators. Dictators versus
Dictators v Democrats. Dictators v
Dictators v
Democrats.
Democrats. There, we've got to get.
That's the
But
one.
actually today you've just put out a really fascinating video about China, and it looks a bit like Blade Runner to me. And I thought we ought to talk about this if that's all right. Um,
Yeah, yeah,
and
wonderful.
also get people to go and have a look at this particular video. Where would people find it?
So it would be on my channel, Dictators v Democrats. The video is on the high-tech, low-life reality that um, modern China is becoming. And I thought it was quite interesting that a number of sort of pro-Chinese Communist Party figures online were posting these reels on TikTok, on X, on
Hmm.
YouTube Shorts, showing these amazing looking cities in China, especially at night. They've taken to coating buildings in LED lights, so that they have this aura, this glow at night, and it looks straight out of Blade Runner, as you said, and it looks like very much like the future that was talked about by a number of authors, like William Gibson in Neuromancer,
Yes.
obviously Philip K. Dick in The Android's Dream of Electric Sheep, which became Blade Runner, and Mike Pondsmith, and it's called cyberpunk.
Well,
And the
I'm a great fan of cyberpunk, but I like my
mm,
cyberpunk to be placed in the 19th century. This is much more like like a K-pop dream, isn't it? It's extraordinary, and there's films which are promoting this aesthetic.
Yeah, so there's films like Blade Runner, Blade Runner 2049. There's anime like Akira, Ghost in the Shell, and there's video games like Cyberpunk 2077 or the Deus Ex series. And if there's a single tagline that sort of sums up the genre, it's high tech, low life,
Mhm.
and it's almost cyberpunk is not something to aspire to, and that's what I thought was so interesting because some of these posts were literally saying, um, "Why would you play, Cyberpunk 2077 when you can come experience Cyberpunk in China?" And I was saying, "Well, I definitely don't want to do that. It's not some. It looks really, really cool. I've always been enamored by the aesthetic of it, but the aesthetic is all a veneer, and that's really the message, the warning it sends. And under that is just enormous human misery because technology, the power of technology, has crushed the individual, the Edith Stein, the Leib. And I found it quite interesting that these people putting out this stuff seem to have completely missed that and are treating this idea as aspirational. And then looking into it a little bit more, I thought, well, modern China really is quite cyberpunk. They are at the cutting edge of a number of enormous numbers of technologies. They're cities, and you cannot deny them this. The growth, the prosperity to for a certain few, and the especially the growth of infrastructure has been astounding over the last 30 years.
Mm.
They've been skyrocketing, and that's one of the sources of cyberpunk is a nervousness in the 1980s, which is really when the genre started, about the same thing from Japan. And obviously, Japan reached its growth plateau in the 1990s, and China is beginning to reach that now. But unlike Japan, China is doubling down on the really repressive elements of cyberpunk, on
You're
the
thinking surveillance state.
surveillance state, exploitation, and the misery that lies underneath it. And I find it interesting that that was missed by all of these commentators saying that
Are
this is
are we
wonderful.
are we not doing the same thing in Britain? Because we have a rival surveillance state here of
We do, we
phenomenal.
certainly do, but there are things that we do not do as well. And there are certain
Yet.
critiques to be made about the United Kingdom, and I will freely make them. We restrict speech too much, but not near to the same level as the Chinese Communist Party do. We engage in too much proactive surveillance, I think, on the streets of the United Kingdom. But one of the differences, I mean, in the video, I show a short from an amazed European tourist who said the technology is so amazing. In an airport, you go to the scanner, it scans your face, and it tells you where your gate is. Okay,
Yes.
well, it's also scanning your face and recording who you are and where you're going.
It
Um,
also tells you where you park your car. You
yeah,
everything is scanned. Yeah.
and and that's quite scary. And we haven't reached that in the UK yet. And if it looks like we're getting towards it, then we should resist it, as we have the right to do. Another difference.
Yes. And but in the film you then go on to draw sort of Cold War parallels.
Yeah, to me it looks. I thought of the Potemkin villages that the Tsarist Empire originally, and then the Soviet Union set up. You know, the show towns with full shops, very happy workers that they bring foreigners to and say, "Look,
Hmm.
socialism at work. It's wonderful." And to me, these videos, so put out with the nod from the CCP, or at least their tacit approval, are kind of like that because they're not showing you the exploitation of the distant water fishing fleet. They're not showing you the red light districts. They're not showing you the China's enormous human trafficking problem, and nor are they showing you the exploitation at the hands of the Communist Party themselves. And it that's what it mirrored to me. It's look at these high-tech glittering cities, look how clean and ordered they are. When in reality, if you were to scratch underneath the surface, you would find the whole range of human misery.
Hmm. But
And yeah.
uh, um but you also you also sketch in. I don't think you give enough attention to it to this idea of complicity, that this isn't one sort of monolithic demand of control. That control is spread over influencers,
Mhm.
algorithms, consumers themselves. Uh, and this is a direction we are going in the West. And this this control. I mean, maybe we could spend a few minutes discussing the concerns about digital ID, but certainly this thing is already dominating our lives and recording everything.
Yeah. And
And
and and
I find it extraordinary. It gives me it sends me things for stuff I know I've talked about, but I
mhm.
have no interest in. And I think, well,
Yeah,
so it's listening to me,
it is listening to you. Yeah.
which I
Um,
find very disturbing.
it is very disturbing, and I despise it, and we should be aiming to change the laws around these things. Our devices should not be listening to us on a constant basis. It's really messed up. Um, and I and yeah, talking about the complicity, a lot of it I feel is a sort of knee-jerk, unthinking complicity. It's, oh wow, that's really cool. I'm going to share that without really
Hmm.
thinking about the implications of sharing it. What you're doing now is you're sharing the worldview, you're sharing the arguments of an authoritarian state which sees things like freedom of speech freedom of movement, freedom to a certain extent, certainly freedom of religion, as well, poisons. I mean, they have the five poisons: democracy, human rights, free speech, Hong Kong, Taiwan, Tibet, Uyghurs. That's more than five. I forget what the actual five are. um, but it's a sort of unthinking complicity. And those who are actually making and posting the videos, well, they're fully complicit with the wants of an authoritarian regime. One they probably don't consider authoritarian. Either they are communists and rather deludedly think the Chinese Communist Party still adheres to any of Marx's visions, or they're simply getting paid.
Yeah, or they're simply making money
Yeah.
independently, which I suppose is another way of saying getting paid. I was having a fascinating conversation this morning with some uh, with some students, and we were talking about schools and about the demands in British schooling for compulsory religious education, or what seems to have devolved into PHSE, which is a rubbish subject anyway. And they said, I don't know why they insist on this subject when 60% of our school, they were saying, is Asian and we don't believe in religion. And I thought there has to be an issue where we push back against this and we say, well, teaching religion is about an insight into culture.
Mm.
And maybe in British schools we should be teaching we should at least be paying lip service to Chinese religion and the huge tradition within China of quite a broad range of religion and syncretism as well. And without that, we cannot see into the Chinese soul. With that, we could.
I agree.
And
And I,
also, I think since the 18th century, we've had a tendency to look across to China and just think everything in that area is Orientalist, a sort of chinoiserie approach, rather than being specifically Chinese or Korean or
Mhm.
Japanese. So K-pop is the big thing. And there's a film which someone was trying to get me to watch last night. I forget what it was, but all these bright pink characters against a deep blue background, which is the cyberpunk image that you
Well, it could be.
that you were
Yeah, yeah.
projecting. And but that's a K-pop inspired thing through China, and a lot of my Chinese students are obsessed with K-pop, and I have to be careful because there's also J-pop, and I
Yeah, well,
get
no,
very
there's
confused.
it's quite interesting, the music industry and how it works there, um, and the cultural exports. But to return to your point about religious studies, certainly, I don't know if we should call it religious studies and more cultural studies these days, with
Well,
religion as an accepted
either
aspect
as
of culture.
I just think we have to get away from this obsession with studying what are those rites of passage, which is such a comparative religion rubbish, and we need to get into the cultural texts, the nitty-gritty of what makes a particular cult, a particular religion interesting. And if we did that with China, we would perhaps understand China a lot more. If we did it with
I think
Japan,
we'd
we would understand
understand.
more.
Yeah, well, because they're both more obligation-based societies. And
Well, you're saying obligation-based societies. In the film, you say authoritarian. Um,
well, I'm saying the Chinese Communist Party is authoritarian, but Chinese society doesn't have to be authoritarian. Taiwan's doing rather well as a liberal democracy, but yeah, they where in the West we look at rights, and this is paraphrasing Professor Sarah Payne from the U.S. Naval War College. In many of the societies of the East, they look at obligations to family and then to town, then to society as a whole. And I think that's a key difference. And that doesn't mean that either society is incompatible with either authoritarianism or democracy. That's far too reductive.
But Theo, if we're raising an eyebrow about Chinese society and authoritarianism, we should equally be raising an eyebrow, at least until the recent judgment, about the right under terror legislation to stop somebody who drives into a port with his Bentley and say, "We want the PIN number for your phone."
I agree. I agree entirely. And this is something that concerns me greatly, and we shouldn't, in rightfully critiquing authoritarianism, established authoritarianism around the world, we should always keep a weather eye back home to ensure that authoritarianism doesn't grow here. Because we have to, I think, with liberty comes a certain amount of chaos and risk. And we just have to accept that, because the fruits of liberty are far better and are far nicer than the fruits of authoritarianism. And it's a bit of a cliche, but those who would, I forget which of the founding fathers said it, but in the States, you can never go wrong by quoting them, apparently. Those who trade liberty for security will get neither.
Yeah.
And we should always keep an eye on back home and be willing and ready to criticize it when needed.
So you've got this issue of surveillance, and then you've also got this issue of the work ethic, and you quote 996 working hours.
No,
trafficking.
996. So 996 refers to you work from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. 6 days a week.
Oh, I see. It's not 996 hours.
No.
Right. 9 a.m. to 6 a.m. And what, 9 a.m. to 6 p.m.?
To 9 p.m.
Well, that seems a perfectly reasonable work day for me.
6 days a week.
Well, I think why not 7? Yeah,
I think
but children
get thee back to the 19th century.
Children, in my experience, a lot of Chinese children, even those here in the UK, work under that constraint. So they come back from school and they're immediately into private tuition, piano classes. I mean, they're excellents in music and then swimming and so on. They're constantly kept busy. So they're grateful for five minutes on their laptop at the end of the day, and this is the scheme. The what was it? The Tiger
Helicopter
Mother.
parenting, or Tiger Mothers.
But
I don't have
a lot of
children
the time
myself.
the mothers are actively engaged in this process. They'll be sitting next to the children while they are supposedly learning with an idea that I found was dominant in Russia, for example, that if you are in a lesson you're learning, if you're doing homework or studying, you're not learning. This is your free time. And so you have to have somebody monitoring what you're doing all the time. And that seems again to come back to your authoritative society. We're not I think we're moving in the same direction, Theo, which is why I keep coming back to it, that we are moving away from the idea of empowering people with the ability to work on their own to this surveyed society where you've got monitors checking to see that you are doing what you've been told to do. Whereas in the 1950s onwards, the great British tradition was the innovation of the worker, that the worker wants to contribute and wants to move the project forward, maybe in a slightly eccentric way. But we give people autonomy.
In the 1950s, people were perhaps rewarded a little better for their work. At least in relative comparison to today, there was much more in the way of of opportunity to climb various ladders, and that has stagnated. So employers are looking for perhaps other ways to motivate people instead of seeing what seems to be to me the rather obvious pay people better and they'll be more motivated. Um, and that's a separate struggle that we have to tackle because, and yeah, you quote the 1950s. I think our democracies are built for the 1950s, and we ought to be looking at the bones and the DNA of how they work in an age which is completely different to that which was envisioned back then, when many of these structures, in the great reforms after World War II and the reforms before, were put into place. Now information moves at an eye blink, and
But
everybody has access to it, but very few people have access to truth.
but the 996 thing is about putting in the time rather than actually
Yeah,
generating work.
it's just about being present as far as I can see. And my concern is if you have two people working 996, working similar hours, you have no time to do some of the vital things that are key to keeping a free society going, which is the maintenance of that society's freedom. Freedom takes work, and it takes the work of an entire society. Ironically, it takes collective work to maintain individual liberty.
Hmm.
Um, and working those sorts of hours makes that much harder because, frankly, you're exhausted.
Oh,
And
and you don't have the freedom to do anything else. There's no time to
no,
plan anything else.
no, no.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that, oh, this is some sort of scheme on the part of the CCP to keep the Chinese people down. They've got plenty of those, but I think that's just a separate idea of work ethic, which I think eventually you get diminishing returns out of forcing people to work longer and longer hours. And I think it's been proven in a number of studies that the 4-day working week um, sees no drop in productivity because people just waste less time.
Well, yes, I'm never convinced about this. So coming from the world of animation,
Mm.
I think, there's only so many drawings you can produce in so much time. So you actually need
Yeah.
you need the time. You can't draw quicker.
Well, it's not going to
And
work in all industries, no.
no, it doesn't. You, moving on to the area where I'm going to dominate you, I'm afraid. Well, perhaps not. Is your reference to Plato's cave?
Oh, you're absolutely going to dominate me there. I'm
No, I'm
a
not. I won't. Theo, I won't. I
philosophical
promise.
layman. So
I
my
promise I won't.
my Spark Notes understanding,
I thought it was a very sophisticated observation, by the way.
that was completely accidental.
Yeah,
I tripped and fell into sophistication.
um, but it does deal with sort of the epistemology in authoritarian regimes,
Mm,
and our Western citizens filtered by sort of algorithmic media. Are we
absolutely.
really less trapped? I think we're probably not. I think we're
No,
as
I think
trapped
we
as.
certainly are less trapped. We are
Do you
much
think
less
so?
trapped. Absolutely. Because I mean,
Well,
another thing
we
I
think we
bring up.
are. We think we are,
Wait,
Theo, but I'm not convinced that we
if I
are.
may,
Go
maybe we
on.
are less trapped.
You may,
We're
you
much less
may.
trapped. Um, for a start, the apps where most of this work is being put out, propagandizing these this wonderful growth, etc., is are banned in the CCP itself. So you can't access X, you can't access TikTok, you can't access you can access the Chinese version. The apps that the Communist Party pushes are things like WeChat, which are of course all monitored,
Hmm.
keylogged, etc., and sent to the CCP. We have more freedom to certainly to choose what services we engage with. So if we only engage with one, okay, say if I only ever engage on Elon Musk's X, then yes, I'm being fed Elon Musk's fascistic vision of the world, because that's what that's what he's pushing through the changes he's made to X's algorithm. But I can simply choose not to engage. I have other options. I could go, if I really wanted to, I could go to Blue Sky, which is less monitored, but also has attracted an enormous number of people on the left. So it's very much left-leaning sort of site. I could go anywhere else, or I could simply ignore it all entirely and watch a selection of news services if I wanted to. I'm not
But
forced to any one particular messed up algorithmic
mhm,
junkyard. I have my selection.
you
And once
think.
you realize that, no, I do. It's not that I think, I certainly do. Um,
What I find so extraordinary is that there are people on my YouTube feed who leave comments and saying everybody believes this, and I think everybody doesn't believe this. I certainly don't believe this. It's because that is what their algorithm throws at them, or that is what the
yeah,
algorithm throws at them because that's what they've expressed an interest in. So they see no other um, life,
there isn't one overarching algorithm that tracks everything you do on the internet and gives you what you want
right?
based on
Yes,
that.
I
Um,
don't want to get into a Liz Truss or Nadine Dorries error area here, but
but it depends on what websites and what services you interact with and how you interact with them.
yes.
And um, and now if people were paying me, I'd start talking about ground news, although I won't because I don't really rate them yet, and unless they pay me, in which case I might rate them.
Yes, yes.
um,
I've looked at ground news, and I find
I've
it
not
quite
personally.
interesting, except from, you look at it yesterday and then today, it's the same feed. It
Oh,
doesn't
it's a
change
bit too
fast enough
US
in my.
focused. No, it
It is
doesn't.
very US focused.
Yeah,
And I
and
find the best. I'll tell you my method for dealing with the news. I start the day at 5:45 in the morning, and I read the FT, and that seems to me to have the most focused articles and the most interesting articles. And
yeah.
then I go to the gutter and I look at look at GB News feed because I know that I
Well,
will
you.
object
Oh
to
no.
most of the things there. And then
Well,
and then I go to the tabloids. And I scan through them. I can read them in about 5 minutes per paper. And then I would go to the Telegraph, the Times, Washington Post,
mm,
and so on. And I would spend about an hour and a half in the morning looking at these, and I've then got a pretty good idea about what I want to talk about for most of the day. And then things drop in. It's only in the afternoon that I would actually look at the BBC, which I'm increasingly finding is rather limp and useless. But then,
I go
as I
to the
think Tim
BBC
Davie should
to
be, yeah,
I go to the
to
BBC
be
to
challenged.
fact check. No, to fact. Nobody goes to the BBC to check. To be fact checked. I go to the BBC once something has been talked about on the various feeds and channels. I don't
Yeah.
read newspapers.
So the BBC is not very quick
No,
at the
it's
moment.
not
It's
because it insists on fact
fact
checking
checking.
everything, which is
Um,
exactly what they need to do and exactly why I find value in it.
yeah,
In that if a simple fact did X, Y, or Z happen or not,
it
usually
will
is
be on the
reported
BBC.
hours beforehand.
Hmm.
So
I, I equally.
I
So
remember tracking the Russian flights over. It was the drones into Poland, right? So I was
yes, yes,
watching
yes.
various feeds on X and on Discord channels I'm involved with, and Signal and Telegram,
Yes, and
that
Telegram.
were providing me
Telegram
an
is very useful.
updated. Yeah, it is. It's a bit
Yeah.
Russian owned, but we're providing me an updated. Oh, it's 19 into Poland. Oh, it's 8. Okay, where are they going? Oh, okay, one was spotted over here, and I was like, okay, well, I'm not sure yet. And then it's reported on the BBC hours later for the first time. And it's like, oh, okay, well, it's happened.
Yeah.
That's what I use the BBC for.
I
The newspapers I don't really touch,
well,
to be honest.
Moscow Times, Kiev Independent,
But
very,
KI I
very,
quite
very,
like.
very
I
useful.
like KI. Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
very, very useful.
yeah.
And
And
there's one or two others. I can't remember what they all are now. I
the
I also
Euromaidan's quite
find
good.
the Turkish news is extraordinarily fast. Greek news is quite slow, but then very very thoughtful.
Hmm.
And I'm comfortable with Greek newspapers, so that's good. But Turkish news, A News, A Haber, these things can get stuff out very quickly.
They can. But
And
you have to, and this is the BBC's obsession, and obligation to make sure everything is absolutely solid and watertight before they
well,
publish it.
it didn't do so well with its Trump speech, did it?
No, but
No.
they they also, I mean, they've got the obligation to an attempt of objectivity, which sometimes leads to some ridiculous scenarios, like well-respected climate scientists in the same room as Nigel Farage talking about
Oh
climate change
yes,
is obviously
yes.
ridiculous.
This obsession with finding an opposition to whatever
Yeah,
to
yeah,
whatever the argument might be. So therefore you have the coronation, and therefore you have a lot of time given to a very, very small Republican movement. There is madness in this. Let's get back to your film because
mm.
so Alibaba, Tencent, and I never know how to pronounce
Huawei,
Huawei, Huawei,
Huawei,
Huawei.
Huawei. Well, I
Have
can't.
I got
Yeah,
have yeah,
Huawei.
there we are, Huawei.
Yeah.
Are extensions of government power. I think this raises questions of um I think it raises questions. I um are we fair to China with that?
Oh wait, define fair. Am I being mean to the Chinese Communist Party?
Is this intentional or is this accidental? Is probably what I'm suggesting.
Oh, I see. No, it's intentional. So Xi Jinping has engaged in an effort to rein in the business class in China after its enormous rocketing growth. Because I mean, this is again something that Professor Payne talks about.
Hmm.
When people are granted or earn enormous economic wealth, and they are now comfortable or more than comfortable, in some cases, stonkingly wealthy. What are they going to want next? Well, it's a say, it's political power,
Yes.
and that is a threat to the authority of the Chinese Communist Party. So a number were arrested, um, and the now the CEOs, etc., the boards of these companies are usually either run by members of the Communist Party themselves or people with quite significant guanxi to members of the Communist Party, and that is an effort to rein in the goose that lays the golden eggs and keep it from wandering around the garden and deciding to repaint the front door. But it risks, as happened in Hong Kong, it risks killing that goose. I mean, nobody talks about Hong Kong in the same sentence as London or New York or Tokyo in terms of financial capitals anymore, because it's
Yes.
not. People, the great financial companies fled.
But to what extent? So the question is, whether this is a qualitative issue. To what extent is this qualitatively different from the entanglement of big tech and Western governments through, let's say, data, lobbying, surveillance capitalism. It's just China does it more efficiently because it's more centralized.
Well, China arrests more people over it, but
Does it?
qualitatively different.
Have we not arrested a huge number of people over free speech issues? At least if I listen to GB News, that's what I think.
I always find that 12,000 arrested over social media posts, and they never say what for.
Yes,
And I wonder what proportion, because I've arrested people over social media posts when I was a serving police officer, but those are a part of domestic violence or investigations that constituted a course of conduct that would be considered to be harassment.
yes.
And they never
As
mention.
indeed we see with the two Jeremy Vine stories, the one with Alex Belfield and the one with the I can't I have no interest in football, but there's a footballer.
No, I know nothing about football.
There we are. There's a footballer called Barton or it seems Jeremy Vine is seriously is seriously afflicted by the beginning of the alphabet. Anybody whose name is B is going. It seems to make a beeline for Jeremy Vine. Um,
But
I think really I would I'm wondering if he's going to move on through the alphabet. But I think he's been long suffering, and I think he needs our support.
mm. But to sort of bring it back to
Sorry, the
the,
qualitative
the
difference.
qualitative question. So the tech companies are not arms of the state. In fact, I think in the democracies they are coming uh, to compete with the state too much. But the difference is we can change our government. We can speak out freely against our government. We can
Mhm.
say XYZ is a mistake of policy and should be altered. We should go down a different policy route. Perhaps we shouldn't. Um, you are free to say we should not assist Ukraine if you believe it. If you believe it, you're wrong, and I'm free to say that you're wrong. You're free to say that we should not, bail out the banks. It happened, and many protested against it. And this is the difference. You can try. You may not succeed, but you can try. It makes democracy messy and inefficient and frustrating. And this is the real spark of these propaganda videos, is that they make authoritarianism look new, look high tech, look shiny and pretty and clean. And none of those things are actually true about it. And all of those things, I mean, there was one video I brought up, which was comparing a very deprived area of the United States. The United States could do much better in dealing with its homelessness crisis. And it said, oh, look at this democracy. And then cut to, I think it was the City of Mountains, I think Chongqing, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. I hope I am, but I am doubtful. With its glittering skyline and said, oh, this is a dictatorship. And that was a direct refutation of everything that democracy is, and was saying dictatorship is simply better. And that is the spark of this propaganda. Look at us. We are new. We're shinier. We're clean. We're safe. None of these things are true. People being held in tiger. You know what a tiger chair is? It came up in the video. The man who was locked in the chair for
Mhm.
speaking, criticizing the traffic police because they were confiscating motorcycles and being interrogated quite aggressively, actually, by the traffic police. And you can see the terror in this guy's face. Welding the doors of apartment blocks shut during China's COVID lockdowns, which were absolutely terribly handled by the Communist Party. And yeah, yes, other countries had lockdowns, and yes, ours were pretty poorly handled as well, but we were not welding doors closed. There's a very significant normative and qualitative difference between the errors that democracies make and the policy of authoritarianism. And this propaganda that's being put out is an attempt at whitewashing authoritarianism, or neon washing perhaps, and making it look attractive, which is the core of China's argument to the world, that China brings stability, harmony, prosperity, and safety. None of these things are actually true, though.
It's
As
the
soon as you
social contract.
scratch beneath the surface. Yeah, well, their social contract is give everything political to the CCP, and you can live an economic life of relative freedom. And that has begun to collapse because economic growth is not what it once was. There is increasing stagnation. And you now have a generation who's lying flat, or a significant proportion of which are lying flat and refusing to engage. And you have a group of authoritarians looking for that next secret sauce, that next magic button, which will ensure their continued political control. And what are they turning to next? Well, authoritarians, they go economic first, and that's worked very well. You cannot deny China's economic growth has been absolutely staggering. And it's beginning to plateau. So where are they going to go? And it's nationalism. And they've engaged in a switch from maritime thinking, where they joined the global trading order as they did in the 80s, which welcomed them with open arms. Everybody makes an enormous amount of money. Prosperity grows everywhere. Prosperity grew in the democracies because of cheaper goods manufactured in China. Prosperity grew in China because, well, those goods were being manufactured there. A growth of a new middle class, etc., etc. These are the wonderful benefits of the maritime global order. And now they're looking to break away from that and entering into continental empire thinking, where, to get security, because the main security, of course, is the security of the Chinese Communist Party, less the Chinese state. You have to engage in land grabs, and you have to engage in militaristic adventurism. So, okay, well, they take Taiwan, they attack Taiwan. It'll be utterly valueless, wealth-destroying, life-destroying mess. And all of what's being put out there, and they've just launched another aircraft carrier, which is rather odd for a country which is really quite easily blockaded, despite its enormous coastline. Its enormous coastline is onto shallow seas, full of islands, and surrounded by people who don't like them very much. Why they build a high seas fleet is a bit odd to me, but that's by the by. And it's another example of that. And that's what concerned me about what I was seeing. And what amused me was that the propaganda was quite clumsy, in that anybody who's ever read Gibson or played Cyberpunk 2077 would know that Cyberpunk is not happy. There are no happy stories. Case, the hero, the anti-hero of Neuromancer, is found as a drug addict in Chiba City, Japan, and eventually enslaved by an artificial intelligence to do its bidding. The heroine of the story, Molly Millions, is essentially a street thug who's got these implants, enhancements, and they were paid for through exploitation, and it got very dark. The whole Cyberpunk 2077 plot is dark. Blade Runner, the plot is dark. It's about slavery, exploitation, and I found it ironic that they missed it.
Yes. Well, it's an attractive aesthetic. And a lot of people don't bother reading the texts.
I mean, you don't have to read the text, you just have to play the video game. Trust me, it's really fun.
Yes, yes, right. We should probably tie up, but uh I think anything that deals with and anything that looks at pop culture in an
Mm.
intelligent way has always got my vote. And I thought this was a clever take.
It was quite
It's
fun to
an
make.
interesting subject.
Yeah,
Um,
and something definitely that I'd encourage sort of our audiences to keep an eye on is when you're seeing a video put online, especially, somebody like mine, why are you seeing it? I mean, I keep my goals clear. I quite like democracy, even if it's messy and frustrating. I quite like being able to say "fuck you" to the government, and not get arrested. Um, and I think we ought to be keeping that because it's very valuable, as it turns
yes,
out.
well, there are movements in Trump's America that worry me. His
Oh
admiration
yeah,
of
yeah.
President Xi's uh, bodyguards
Mm.
is disturbing.
I got told I
And
had Trump derangement syndrome the other day.
oh
No
yes,
comment.
I keep being told that. It took me a long time to work out what because people just use the little acronym as TDS, and I thought, what is this? Is this a serious disease? Um,
No, it's not. It's put out by members of his
MAGA
particular
majority, MAGA
cult.
minority. Yeah,
Yeah, and it is a minority. He's doing terribly in the polls at the moment.
he is. But we have a similar problem going on over here, I think.
Yes,
And
we do.
again, an obsession with people only being fed information from that one source or
Yeah,
promoting that one source. So they think everybody believes this. Our problem in Britain is that the various political alternatives don't exist at the moment or aren't being promoted.
yeah.
Um,
Um,
but we've got 4 years.
but we do, and we need some serious constitutional reform, I think, in our country. Reform with a small R, not the stupid party, which is not actually a political party because it's not allowed to be.
Yes, there we are. Okay. Is it
Oh
not a
well.
political party yet?
I don't think they are yet. I still think that they are a
A
one of
limited
those
company.
no, I think they're a community focused business or whatever it is under
You're right.
HMRC laws.
Right.
Um,
Because Jeremy Corbyn and Sultana are having problems in the same area. I think it's difficult to set up a political party, it seems.
I think I have no idea. I've never attempted it.
No.
I'm not a joiner. So I joined the Labour Party for about 5 minutes after leaving the police because I was like, oh, I can join a political party. I went to one meeting, decided it was very boring, and left.
Well, congratulations. Congratulations.
Hmm.
I have never joined the Labour Party. Though every time I've stood for election, the Labour candidates always sidled up to me and said, "When are you coming over to us?" And I thought, it's not going to happen. But I do like Labour people.
Oh,
It's just
to be
it's
honest,
not for me.
I've not met yet somebody who's involved in politics who I haven't found, yeah, at least on a personal level, um, quite fun to talk to.
Yes, me too. Me too. Even people in
Um,
Reform and UKIP. Um,
uh,
you know,
no, there was one person in Reform, but that was because he was sympathetic to modern Russia, in which case I just wrote him off as a pseudo-fascistic idiot.
well, people who are sympathetic to modern Russia haven't been there,
Yes,
and and
and haven't been bombed by them. I've had the experience
yeah.
of the latter. So my opinions are coloured by the sound of Shahid drones.
Yes. Yes.
Yes,
Well, I think that's perfectly reasonable. I haven't had the experience of the latter, but I've had the experience of the former.
indeed.
And although I think Russia has enormous potential, it's going in the wrong direction at the moment. And my Russian friends are either being silenced or extremely worried, or have fled, or are on lists, or indeed have been killed. Which
I would encourage their fleeing, but and to set up an alternate exile government at
well,
this stage. I think we're
well,
at that point.
there is one, but the problem is it's very difficult for Russians to flee. You need exit visas. You need permission to leave the country,
No, nowadays, yeah.
and that is hard. And they also know that if they leave, their family will be attacked.
Hmm. No.
So it is hard work. Anyway, we better stop there. And
Yes, I think so.
thank you very much. And again, I should encourage people to have a look at the video because we're simply talking about something that is on your channel and that is
Yes.
well worth looking at. So again, we go to where?
Dictators v Democrats. I'll send you a link to put in the description below.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Theo, it's been a
Wonderful.
pleasure as ever.
Tim,
Right.
thank you very much indeed. Ta-da.
Right. Bye bye.